Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, I gotta admit, when I got up yesterday morning, I had no idea what I was gonna do today. Really had no idea what I was gonna do yesterday either, but we figured it out. But then last night I got a telephone call. Turns out the contractor who's gonna replace the patio is ready to start, and he's gonna start today. So it's about 7:30 right now. He's supposed to be here in about 30 minutes, and I gotta get some stuff off of the patio so that it's all clear and ready for him to come in and do his thing. So that's what I'm gonna start with. So yeah, all this stuff needs to go. I'm just gonna move it kind of out into the lawn to get it away from here, because then they'll be able to work in here and not have to deal with all this stuff, because obviously you can't remove all the flagstone on the ground here if you got a bunch of stuff sitting on it. So get it all out into the yard, and then we'll be ready for them to come and do their thing. And it begins, and I can see what they did here. It doesn't look like they even put any foundation underneath it. They just laid the stones on the ground and then put grouting in between them. That's probably part of the reason it didn't do very well in here. And see, I'm still convinced that this section over here was added afterwards, and the original patio probably just went out to where that straight line is right there, and then they added this later. Looks like we're going to be repairing some lawn work here too. Oh yeah, they're totally ripping up the lawn. Well, nuts. I told them they could put all the stonework over there. So I originally wanted them to put it over there, but it didn't look like they were going to be able to get the tractor in there, and they started going over here, and it's like, no, don't put it on top of Flash's house. So they dropped it right there, and I guess that's where it's just going to have to be for now. We'll have to figure all this out later. Like I said, this is kind of the mess part of the yard anyway, so I didn't really expect I'd be getting big chunks of it out, so I'll probably end up chopping those into 3 or 4 pieces and then using those for footstones at some point. Or maybe we'll just haul them off to the dump. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Alright, so they got the first part of it torn out. And yeah, it's all the more obvious now that this was added after that, because you look over here, there's actually a concrete foundation underneath it. So it was just a real thin, like 1 or 1.5 inch chunk of stone that was put on top of it, and then the concrete was underneath it. Now what they're saying, I think, is that they're going to pull the flagstone off, leave the original foundation underneath it, and then just build up on top of that. So they're going to raise up the level a little bit, and that'll be good. But the rest of it's going to be manual labor now. Alright, so we're starting to get things framed up a little bit. This is going to be kind of the shape of it. Originally, it kind of went out more like this, but I said, you know what, if they just want to go straight along this line, that works fine for me. And then they're going to basically reproduce the curve that went all the way along here, and now they're kind of digging out the path for the meandering path out to the pool. Now this was a little bit of a pain for them, because what I want to do is I want to have the concrete there flush with the ground, so that I can run over it with a lawnmower without having to worry about that. And so they're having to kind of dig that down a little bit. This is going to be a little bit of a step down. It'll probably be 1 inch or 2 going down to the lawn, but that's not going to be a big deal. And I think they basically decided that they're going to make the concrete level basically the level of this, so there won't be a step coming out the door, and then there'll be about a 2-inch drop from this end to that end, and that should keep the water from pooling in the center, which was a big problem right here. So we are in the rebar laying phase right now. I got everything kind of framed out the way we want it, and now it's just kind of cutting the rebar to kind of fit into the spot. The purpose of the rebar is it kind of holds the concrete together, keeps it from cracking over time. What they'll do ultimately is they'll lift the rebar about 1 inch or 2 off the ground, so it's right in the middle of the concrete. And like I said, that just adds to the strength, makes it less likely to crack over time. I was going to offer to let him use my little electric grinder, but he's got a gas-powered thing that's doing a far better job than anything my little equipment could handle. Yeah, stuff like this is the reason why I turn to the professionals for doing things like this. I know a lot of the basic steps for doing this, but you know, there's a few tricks that I've learned by watching these guys that I wouldn't have thought of until I see them do it. It's like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Plus the fact I don't have all the cool toys for doing this, so you know, this would have been too much of a project for someone like me. So with home improvement projects, you got to know what your limits are, and when you hit your limit, you got to call in the pros. And one of the tricks that I didn't even think of until I saw them doing it is that they're actually going to have a piece of rebar that's going to kind of follow the curve of the path here. I just figured they'd do this grid pattern all the way around, but I saw him sitting there laying it out and he's going to run along the edge, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. And then when he actually does the meandering of the path here, the rebar is going to follow the curve of the path too, rather than having just go a straight grid pattern. And that makes sense too. So like I said, you know, I don't know how to do all this, so leave it to the pros. Now when I had the sidewalk and patio poured for my house in California, what they did is they brought in a traditional cement mixer truck, and then they pumped it into what they call a cement pumper, which is basically a little attachment that fits on the back of the truck that squirts the concrete through a big giant hose, and then you just bring the hose to wherever you need and squirt it on like you're filling a pool or something like that. These guys aren't going to do that. They're going to have their traditional concrete mixer truck, but they're going to pour the concrete into one of those little portable mixer things. They say they hold about 3/4 of a yard of concrete, and then they'll wheel that all back here and pour it by hand. I guess that's the way they did it. They decided that was probably more economical than the pumper truck, but whatever, I'm going to leave it to them. They're the ones that are the experts. Now I reinstalled part of the ladder today so that they can verify that the height's all right and everything's level for the ladder, because that's kind of an important thing. It's got to work with the ladder, and got to make sure everything fits properly. So when they get to the point where they're getting close to put the concrete, you know, they can lower this part of the ladder down and make sure it's going to fit properly onto the footpath beneath it. And we're definitely going to have to do a little work on the lawn. The tractor kind of tore things up a little bit, but yeah, that's what happened. You know, when you're moving big chunks of stone, sometimes that's your only option. So we'll get someone in here with maybe do some resodding back here and get this all looking nice again. On a separate note, everything's really nice and colorful here right now. All the blue bonnets are blooming, and it's very, very pretty back here. Can't complain at all, can you? So what he's doing now is he's drilling holes into the slab, because you actually want to anchor the rebar into the slab so that it holds the concrete work to the house. Otherwise, there's always a possibility they could separate. You don't want that to happen. So it looks like we're basically done for the day. They've gone home already. It's a little afternoon right now. And as I mentioned, what they'll normally do here is they'll wire together the rebar at each of the points there where it kind of connects together, and it'll be lifted off the ground also a little bit so that you can get the concrete under it, and the rebar ends up in the middle. Turns out the guy didn't have any of the wire that they use to tie the rebar together. So when they come back in the morning to lay the concrete, they're going to finish up the rebar, and then we're going to lay the concrete. Hopefully, assuming the weather cooperates. You don't want to do that when it's raining, and there's a 50% chance of rain tomorrow. So I don't know. We'll play it by ear, see what happens. But at this point, we're done for the day. I'm going to kind of clean up a little bit, sort some of the stones. They took all the big flagstone pieces and put it over here, blocking Flash's cave here. So I'm going to have to deal with that. Some of these big chunks of flagstone here probably weigh half a ton. So I'm going to probably end up having to chop some of those into pieces. You know, that piece there is a good 5 feet long, 3 feet, 4 feet wide. So I'm sure that one weighs at least half a ton. There's a few of those here. They had to bring these over here with a forklift. They're so heavy. And I've kind of done a little bit of sorting. We'll turn some of this stuff into like pavers or something that we'll like put in the yard, so I can walk around in the yard. And the rest of it we'll probably just end up having to throw away. So probably be making some trips to the landfill at some point. But I am glad that they were able to get a lot of these pieces out in one big piece, even though it's going to be a pain to move it around and get it where I want. You know, I'll do something cool with it. So anyway, I think that's all that I have for today. So thank you as always for watching. Come back next time and we're going to lay concrete, hopefully. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Good night, everyone.